All right. Are those online? Can you hear me? All right, thanks. Okay. Waiting for the document camera to come up here. Have a little problem getting started, just like me. I think we're. All right. Okay, so a couple of things. Hopefully you got the emails this morning, and I apologize for that. I created a whole separate homework that you would be able to do rather than the one I posted, but then I grabbed the wrong one when I went to post it. But you should have been able to do problem 11.2.2. Although I do understand it's a little, it's not worded very well to refer you back to the graph in the book that we talked about in class. And I can't remember what figure that was. I looked it up here really fast.
It's like 11.2.
11.2.
Or 11.2.5.
11.2.5, yeah. So that one refers back to this graph right here, and that's what you have to use to find the efficiency of the pump of the criteria they give you. You have to decide what type, is it radial, mix, or propeller, and then you come up here to the graph, find it for a given flow range, and come over here and find the efficiency. Okay, and I know that's, blow that up so hopefully you look like what? Okay, so once again, given the information that they give you, you can find the specific speed. So using the specific speed, and I think it's in, is it metric?
Yeah.
Okay, so use this, this axis down here, come up here then, and based on the flow rate range, you might have to interpolate, but I think they actually give you one that falls right on it. Come up here and you select that graph, and then once you hit it, you come on over and you read the efficiency. Okay, and that's how you solve that problem there. So I will extend the time for that problem, and we're going to cover some stuff today that will allow you to do either the homework that was posted, or I may I'll have to take a look at it, to be honest. All right, first thing I want to cover today is how to fit a curve to a pump curve, how to fit an equation to a pump curve. So here we have a typical pump curve. All right. And on this pump curve then we have the key components. We have the different impeller sizes, 9.5 down to 7.25, I think that is. And we've got the efficiency curves on here. We've got the net positive suction head as well. And we've got the net positive suction head axis over here to the right. All right. So this graph will do both English and metric. So just make sure you use the right one. But if you want to put this into a program, you need to know how to turn it into an equation, because using a graph in a program is very difficult. You can tabularize it, or you can use an equation. So I want to show you how to do an equation. And you already know how to do it, you just don't know that you know how to do it. Okay? So, pump equation. We know the equation form. So the equation form is going to be of the form that the head of the pump, or the amount of head, so you got to be careful. Head of the pump, that stands for horsepower, doesn't it? Okay, I'll put H of the pump there, so we know it's no horsepower, is equal to H sub naught plus A times Q plus B times Q squared. And the reason why we go with this form is because we call it a pump curve. And this is the simple equation of a curve. Okay? Flow rate squared, and we have some coefficients, and we have some, and remember H sub naught, what do we call H sub naught? When there's no flow, so if Q goes to 0, the amount of head that the pump adds is the
y-intercept.
It is the y-intercept, and there's a special name we gave for it. When the pump is shut from allowing any flow, when the valve is shut, so the pump can't provide any flow, but it's on, that gives us the shutoff head. Okay, so that's over here, the y-intercept, but also called the shutoff head. Well, how much energy is the pump adding to the system is if the flow is absolutely 0. Flow can't go anywhere. And I think, as I noted last time, is that's not good practice to do that. A few seconds of shutoff head is not going to be hurt anything, but you don't want to do extended long periods of runtime at shutoff head. You'll ruin your pump. So knowing that we want to fit this type of equation, and we have 3 variables we need to find: H sub naught, A, and B. If we can find H sub naught, A, and B, then we now have an equation to describe how this pump is going to perform. It may not be perfect. It may not be a perfect fit, but it's going to be pretty close. All right? So in order to find 3 coefficients, 3 unknowns, I need 3 equations. Good. So if I gave you a set of equations, so given 2x plus 3y minus 5z equals 5, minus x plus y plus z equals 1, 3x minus 2y minus 2z equals a negative 1. Can you solve for x, y, and z? And you can do that, right? You guys have that knowledge or that ability to solve a linear system of equations. So what we really need to do is we need to develop a linear system that we can then solve. And the way so we want to develop 3 linear equations and then solve. Okay? So if I guess or pick, maybe pick's a better, pick 3 flows with Q equal to 0 as 1. Okay. Now I can choose to find my pump curve either in cubic feet per second or in cubic meters per second or in gallons per minute or in cubic liters per second. But I need to be careful how I do that because it's going to give me different values up here based upon my units. Okay? Sorry about that. So for this particular graph, I want to be able to match it up with my system curve. And my system curve is in cubic feet per second. So I'm going to solve for my coefficients based on cubic feet per second. Right? Now you don't have to do that, but so in order to do that, then I'm going to create a table here, and I'm going to have Q in gallons per minute, and then I'm going to have Q in CFS, and then I'm going to have my H of the pump over here. Okay. So I said one of my flow rates is 0. So I can easily solve this, right? I can go ahead and 0 gallons per minute is 0 cubic feet per second. And if I stick 0 up into my equation up there, H of the pump is H sub naught, my shutoff head. Okay? Doesn't matter what pump curve, the first one for 0 is always the shutoff head. And then if I take my pump curve, and I'm just going to use this as an example, let's say that I wanted to get my pump curve for the highest pump up here, that 9.5 diameter pump. Okay, so I think I'm going to try and operate out in this region out here where it's the highest efficiency. So I'm going to pick some points that capture that the best. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pick say 450. I'm going to put a little dot right there. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to pick 900 since those are right on. Okay. So if I do that, then I can come over here and say at 450 gallons per minute, I'm going to have a flow rate or a head. Oops, I didn't do that very well. Of approximately 85, give or take. And down here, I'm going to have maybe about 58. Okay. You see, everyone see how I got that? Okay. So now I can come back down here and I can fill my table in and I can say this is going to be 450 and the other one I said was 900. I didn't intentionally double that. They don't have to be double like that, but it just worked out that way. Okay. So now I'm doing quick math in my head. 450 divided by 450 is going to give me 1, right? Actually, I didn't even plan that either, but that's kind of nice because the conversion is essentially 488.8, so 450. This other one's going to be 2 CFS, right? Okay. So now I can go ahead and plug into my graph. Well, okay, I'm jumping ahead. So next thing I need to do is put in my values, which we said were 85 and 58. So here is going to be 85, and this is 58. Okay. So those are just 3 random points. Well, not so random because the first one is always at 0. And then the other 2 are random around the location where I think my pump's going to operate. And note now, I can write 3 equations. So my equations become this. 85, oh, let's see. My shutoff head, I need my shutoff head too, sorry. My shutoff head is going to be about 88. So let me bring this back down here. Shutoff head is 88, okay? So I'm going to go back to my graph here and make that 88, or back to my table, 88. So my 3 equations become then 88 is equal to h sub naught plus a times 0 plus b times 0 squared. Then the next one, I'm going to have 85 is equal to h sub naught plus a times 1.0 plus b times 1.0 squared. And the last one is going to be 58 is equal to h sub naught plus a times 2 plus b times 2 squared. So now I can create a matrix, a linear system, if you will, that is 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, and 4. Now note, they don't always come out to be this nice of numbers. It's kind of nice that this book question, if you will, worked out this nice for showing it to you, but these are usually not that nice of numbers. Okay. And my values over here that I'm solving for are h sub naught, a, and b. And my b vector then is going to be equal to 88, 85, and 58. Okay. if I do my math correctly, then I'm going to get that h sub naught is equal to 88, which you should be able to tell from the first equation. That if you don't get that, you know something's wrong. A is equal to 9, and B is equal to a negative 12. And once again, the numbers don't always come out that nice and clean. And usually they are fraction or they're decimal numbers. Okay? What is fairly common is for B to be negative, because we have a curve that is decreasing as Q increases. So one of those two has to be, A or B has to be negative, and it's usually B that is negative, but not always. Okay? So now the equation of my pump curve, H sub P, is equal to 88 plus 9 times Q plus, or minus, sorry, not plus, minus 12 times Q squared. Q is unit-wise in CFS. Now, if I wanted to do this equation in terms of gallons, I wouldn't convert it to CFS first. I would just stick gallons up here into my equations, but then I would know that the head is a function of gallons. I have to stick gallons in for Q, not CFS. Just make sure you use the correct units when you develop this. All right? Now, we can see if this works really fast. As an example, let's look at Q equals, I don't know, 700 gallons per minute, which then is going to be equal to 1.56 cubic feet per second. If I take that then and put that into my equation, okay, and then 9 times okay, and then if I add that to 88, I get H of the pump, head of the pump, is equal to essentially 73 feet. Let's go back to our graph. So once again, I just plug this value into that equation up there for Q, solve for H sub P. I can come back over here to my graph and I say, all right, 700 right here. If I come up to 700 and pick that point right there, it should be close to, what did I say, 73? And voila, it's approximately 73, as expected. So, okay. So this point right here, when I read over, gives me this point right there, 73. All right. So now you know how to fit an equation to any curve if it's second order. You can find the coefficients, and for most, if it's a true second order curve, it fits pretty well. Not perfect, but it fits pretty well. Okay? All right.
Can you see the other page for a second?
Sure. Going back to this page? Yeah.
When you first assumed that that H hill is 88, did you just pick that kind of winding the 2 points that we picked first up?
No, so 88's the shut-off head.
Yeah, so how did you find it?
So I followed my top curve all the way over, and where it intersects the y-axis, that's where I read that, and I read approximately 88 right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that top curve is all is.
So
Based off the efficiency?
I said, no, the top curve, this is with an impeller that is a 9.5-inch impeller. So this pump can have a 9.5-inch, 9, 8.5, 8, 7, should be 7.5. Somewhere it says right here, impellers are trimmed to quarter increments. So you could do a bunch more in there as well. If you wanted to do like a 9 1/4, you could trim 9 1/4, and you just interpolate your pump curve in between. Okay. So I just told you, I just said I'm gonna decide to use the 9.5 diameter impeller, and I want to fit a curve to that pump I want to fit an equation to that pump curve. All right.
How did you pick those two flow rates? Does it matter which two you pick?
So I picked 450 and 700 just randomly because I thought that when I put my system curve, which I haven't calculated yet, I don't have it, but I randomly said I think my system curve is probably going to come up here in this range, and I want those two, if possible, those 2 points to bracket where my system curve is going to go in between, because those 2 points are going to do the best job of defining what that curve shape should be. I don't care if the curve shape is not correct out here, because I think I'm going to operate down here. So you try to bracket where you think you're going to operate. Now, you may not always know that, all right? And so you might want to grab one here at 450 because that's halfway, and then come down here. Well, I did pick all the way to 900. Sorry, I said 700 here, didn't I? I bracketed it between 450 and 900, which is, that's the majority of the parts where the pump's going to operate at. If I'm not operating my pump in this range most of the time, then I did, or someone selected a very poor pump for the system. Which kind of reminds me of my homeowners association where I live. They've got a pump that's operating back here in this range, very low efficiency. And the guy that owned the land next to us wanted to develop the land. He came around to my neighbors saying, hey, can I tie into your irrigation system? And some of them were pretty rude to the guy, unfortunately. And I looked at it and said, you know, our pump has plenty of capacity. We could let them tie in. They could pay for our system. They'd think it's a win. We'd think it's a win. And all my neighbors said, no, no one's touching our water. So, have I shared the story about water in this class? Yeah, that's exactly, yeah, right there. So, like, you guys can save some money. And
If they had decided to go with it, would it have been more in the more efficiency side, like more in that range?
yeah, it would have brought it down because we currently have, here's the irony, a little more backstory. We have, I think, 12 or 13 lots in our subdivision. This new subdivision is going to be a much bigger density, higher density, and they're going to put in 19 houses on 1/4 of the land. And so they're going to have more houses, but only add 25% more land. And it's like, well, our pump will add 25% more, no problem at all. In fact, I don't think we would have hardly budged down into the best range. We would have come from 60% maybe to the 70 or 80% range on the pump, not coming down to the 85. And I looked at it and said, we can even put a pressure sustaining valve on the end of our system that'll make sure that we always get first pick of pressure. We always get high pressure, and they get leftovers, and they would still be thrilled. And the contractor, you know, if he didn't have to put a whole new system in, a whole new pump and everything, and he could tie into ours, I'm like, and they could pay our yearly fee, and they'd still be happy. Like, I pushed over the sacred cow when I approached that one. Made some people very unhappy, so I just let it drop. Alrighty, so really quickly now that we know how to do that, let's work an example. Let print. Look really fast and see which homework I did upload. I looked at it this morning. So what I think we'll do is we'll turn this into Friday's homework, because you have to develop a pump curve, and then number one is a little more complex. So right now, let me work this other problem that I brought with me. Okay. This other pump curve. All right. So given the pump curve on the next page, which is what we looked at, determine a pump equation for the 8-inch impeller. So we did that, okay? Except for we did it for the 9.5, but still we created the same, we went through the process, okay? So now let's look at this. A 6-inch pipe that is 900 feet long with a friction factor of 0.08 is used to transport water from one storage tank with a water surface elevation of 10 feet to another storage tank with an elevation of 30 feet. Assume that the entrance and exit Ebel losses are small, but there is a valve with minor loss coefficient of 5. Using the pump that is described by the pump curve on the next page, graphically determine the operating head, flow, and efficiency of the pump using the 8-inch diameter, okay, the 8-inch impeller. So let's go ahead and run through this. So in this case, I told you which, or we're told, I should say, we're told which impeller to use. On the homework problem, you're not told you're given 2 pumps. It's more of a design problem. You're given 2 pumps, and you have to pick the best one. And usually you're going to pick on efficiency. You're going to find the one that meets the flow criteria and has the best efficiency. But for this particular one, so we have this little system here, if you will, and a little water line with the pump, and then it's going to go up. I want some water surface up here. All right. And I know that this is 30 feet and this is at 10 feet. Okay. It's 900 feet long, so 900 feet, 6-inch pipe, so 0.5 foot diameter. For those draftspersons in here, is the diameter symbol go before or after the sign? Do you remember? Is it this way or is it this way? That means diameter.
I think it's in front.
It's in front. I think so too. I can't remember for sure, but I think you're right. That looks familiar. So the diameter is 0.05 feet. All right. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go ahead and we've got our pump curve right here. That's what we've been using. And now we need to develop our system curve. So our system curve is that the head of the pump is equal to delta Z plus CQ squared, right? Well, delta Z is 20, it goes to 20 feet, so 10 minus, or 30 minus 10 gives me 20. And now we have to calculate the C value. Well, C is equal to F times L over D plus K for our valve times 1 over 2GA squared. So now I can go ahead and calculate that C value. So C is equal to 0.018 times the length, which is 900 feet, divided by 0.5 feet, plus 5 for the minor loss of the valve, times then 1 over 2 times gravity times the area, which is pi divided by 4 times 0.5 squared, area squared. And let's crank this out really fast. Okay, and if I've done that correctly, C is equal to 15.1. Okay, so head of the pump is equal to 20 feet plus 15.1 times Q squared, where Q unit-wise, Q unit-wise is in CFS. Okay. Zach, how we doing? Doing good? All right, wonderful. So now we can go ahead, we want to plot our system curve on top of our pump curve. So we're going to look at the pump curve here and we say, all right, well, 0 is a good starting point because I know I have 20 feet ahead. So there's 1 point. Now I want to be in the range down here, somewhere around 500. And let's see, I'm using the 8-inch curve though. I'm using the 8-inch one. So let's go 400 and say 800. Well, let's go a little bigger. We'll go 500 and 1,000, all right? So not too worried about this. So I'm going to create my little graph here once again, and I'm going to do Q then in CFS. Well, I don't need to do, yes, I do. So Q in gallons per minute. Didn't leave myself enough room there. 0, 500, and 1,000. And then I'm going to do Q in CFS, and then I can do H of the pump. Okay. So at 0, I'm going to hit then a value of 20 as expected, 20 feet that I have to lift it up. 500 is going to give me 1.11 cubic feet per second. And at 1,000, this will be 2.22 cubic feet per second. So now I can go ahead and plug those into my pump equation. And find that at 500 gallons per minute, my total head at the pump is 39. Okay. And at 1,000 gallons per minute,
Can you move the screen up a little bit for me, please?
Sure. Thank you. It is 94. Let me check that one again. Actually, 95, but might have punched that in wrong. So 15.1, 0.22 squared. I'm going to add 20 to that. Yeah, let's call this 95. Okay. So now I can go ahead and come over to my graph. And I apologize that I didn't have a little more time to prep today. I would have liked to have a pump curve in front of all of you. Kind of do this on your own, but the video will be posted so you can watch it again here. So I'm going to come to 500 and I'm going to go up to, I said 39, right? Yeah. So 500, I'm going to come up here and it's going to be just under 40 right there. So I'll put a dot right there. And then I'm going to go to 1,000 and I go up to 94, 95 at 1,000. So 95 is going to be somewhere up here. All right. Now if I had a French curve, I'm just going to try and fit this the best I can. And for the limited time that I have here and trying to do it really fast, I'm going to call that good. Okay? Okay, so now you guys tell me, if I'm going to use the 8-inch impeller, where is my system operating at? What is the flow rate and the head? Okay. So we're going to see that the 8-inch is right here, comes over pretty close, yeah. You know, depending on how we draw that curve, but let's call that 600. Good, I like that. So flow rate 600. And what is it?
About 48 feet.
Okay, and we come straight across here, and H is equal to 48 feet. Okay. That's where our system's going to operate using this pump. And what is going to be the efficiency at that point?
Between 82 and 83.
Yeah, between 82 and 83, so I'm just going to call it 82. With the lower value, that's the most conservative, 82%. Okay. And I know we haven't talked about net positive suction head, but if we wanted to find the net positive suction head required, that would be equal to? Yep, come across right here, the correct graph, that would be 8 feet. Okay.
So on the homework problem, in that first one, it didn't give you that a cue that it wanted, and it also didn't give you which pump you're supposed to use. So what do you go off of?
Okay, so in this particular problem, we have 2 pump curves to choose from, right? And this may be the fact that, you know, down at the yard, if this is a city, you have these pumps available. You know, let's use one of these. And so we're not necessarily going to be looking for a brand new pump. For some reason, we are stuck to these 2 pumps. And we want, under these criteria of the situation here, we get to pick, and you can state any assumptions, okay? And one assumption, which would be an easy and obvious assumption, easy and obvious, was that I'm going to go for the one that's most efficient, okay? So I'm going to find the pump within those 2 pump curves, the pump and impeller, that is the most efficient, since no flow criteria was given. And that could mean that either one of those pumps then will meet the criteria of what we need. The one that pumps more, okay, so this one's gonna, you know, max out around 8,000 or so. This one maxes out about the same there. So we're not worried. Obviously, this pump is gonna come on when we need it and turn off. It's not gonna be running continuous. So 8,000 gallons per minute must meet the criteria of whatever we're putting into. So pumping is not one of the design parameters. So now you need to just decide what is going to be your parameter, and efficiency would be the obvious choice. Okay. So once you find that, when you go through this and you find that which one works the best, then you need to go ahead and calculate what is the total water horsepower, what is the brake horsepower, and then what is the line power, that's the total power. And then you can calculate if it operates for a certain number of hours every day, what's it going to cost. You can also calculate what it would cost to pump 10,000 gallons. Okay, what is the cost if I'm going to pump 10,000 gallons? So kind of think about that. At the pumping rate that you're pumping, how long will it take to pump? And then,
So part G, just to ask you about that, it says, what is the cost of operation for each pump? So you want us to select one pump on each curve and do kind of a comparative analysis?
well, that could be one of your design criteria. So you know what I'm saying? You select the efficiency of the highest one off of each curve, and then you go through and you calculate, okay, which one's gonna operate, because the head and the flow rate are different. So usually the one that's the highest efficiency is the one that's going to be the best choice, the least costly to operate, but not always. I don't think when I set this up, I guess I don't, well, actually, maybe I wanted you to calculate both of them. Yeah, go ahead and calculate one off of each one. That would be great experience.
How about the last question?
Okay, so yeah, the last one, I. Okay, so we haven't gotten to I, and I was hoping to get that today, but we're not going to get to that today, obviously. So don't worry about I. So just don't complete I. Okay.
When you find C, you go off like the pump section, or I don't know, maybe I just read the problem wrong, it confused me, but it looks like we had 2 different, like there's 2 different diameters given in the problem. So which one would we use?
Okay, so the reason why we have 2 different diameters ties into this one right here. Ties into I. Just treat the whole system as a 21-inch diameter PVC pipe.
Okay.
Now you're going to have to add the length together. So the total length of the system is going to be 2,340. But just rather than getting complex, just treat it as 21 inches and go with that. And then on Friday, we'll talk about net positive suction head, and we'll talk about why the suction pipe here was 2 feet versus the discharge at 21.
If I went through and already did the calculations with the 2 separate pipe diameters, is that still going to be okay?
Yes, yeah, I don't want to create any additional work for you, so that's good. That's the graduate level work right there. Forcing the graduates to go a little extra farther, so you kind of went above and beyond, which is a great experience, actually, so don't redo it. Okay, and then problem 2 down here, that's where you're going to create an equation for the pump curve. You should have an equation for the system curve from up here, and then the operating point of the system. Now you have 2 nonlinear equations, and if you want to solve them numerically, how would you do that?
Set them equal to each other.
Okay, well, HP, yeah, you could set them to each other and solve. That would work. You're going to come out with a quadratic. Just know that then you have to select the right root. So I want you to figure out how to solve that. Either use your calculator, Excel, because you can solve nonlinear equations in Excel now, right? Using the solver. 2 equations, nonlinear, piece of cake. So the goal here is to then see how you can solve this numerically rather than just graphically. Okay? So by hand, by setting them equal to each other and using your calculator, or by putting the equations into your calculator and using the solver on your calculator, or using the solver in Excel. All right? So I will extend the time for problem 11.2.2, which will be due tomorrow. That's from the book. Should be able to crank that out in a couple of minutes. It's not that hard of a problem. And then this one that's already there will be due on Friday, minus part I. Okay. All right, and with that, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on Friday.